Hi all, it's Jill Sproat with this week's Scrap Your Stash feature. Pigtails, presents, and pattern paper. What do they all have in common? They all look incredible with ribbon. This week I'll be showing you how I use ribbon alongside pattern paper. Ribbon adds color, texture, and dimension to layouts. It really can be something that inspires you to take it from your stash and use it on the page. So let's get started. I'll be scrapping two photos of my mom and my aunt. They're actually looking at a bowl of pickled herring. The first place I started, since pickled herring accents are quite rare these days, was with deciding on the pattern papers that I would be using. The main thing that I was searching for here, you notice that I'm holding up the photo against each paper, is to kind of see the hues that kind of emerge, a aura sort of around the photos. If you notice, the colors in the photo actually seem to change based on what kind of paper is behind it. Certain colors in the photo are brought out or they kind of recede. I decided on this yellow paper from Alison Kreft for Webster's Pages. And then I pulled out the ribbon. So all three of these that you see here are from Webster's Pages. The back two packs are from Alison Kreft for Webster's. I also pulled out some accents that would fit perfectly with the colors in the photos. So these are also from Webster's Pages and Pink Paisley. They really do remind me of these two. And then my daughter took the camera, so you can see our empty laundry basket there. Enjoy the view. What I decided to do here was to stitch ribbon as if I was using paper strips. Right? So I laid it out horizontally across the paper. I don't use adhesive or anything like that on the back. I just kind of hold it still as I sew. And then I layered strip by strip, piece by piece of ribbon, actually making sure that there was a little overlap so that you wouldn't really see the cardstock and there was kind of a seamless quality. And so all of the ribbon that you're seeing here comes from those Alison Kreft for Webster's Pages packs. There's different kinds of textures that are created here and different interplays of color. The variety, I think, is really great. As I was creating the page, initially the plan was to just overlap as much ribbon as I could. But as I was working, I kept thinking about how great these would look with patterned paper strips. And so I decided that I would only cover part of the page with kind of this cluster of ribbon, and then the rest of the page would be built on coordinating patterned paper strips. While stitching the last of the ribbon, I made sure that the very top of it wasn't stitched so that I could tuck items behind it. So initially I was going to add the photos, but then I decided paper strips would look better. So I just loosely cut paper strips, stacked them over each other. I didn't really adhere them well because I was planning once again to stitch. So I used a little bit of tape runner behind them. And I chose colors that would not just work with the photos, but would also kind of repeat the colors that you see in the ribbon there. After adding the two photos, I decided that it would actually work better visually to create a visual triangle. And so the two envelopes that I added, they not only repeat the colors that you see in the photos and on the layout, but they also become that third angle in the triangle. The envelopes, initially I just picked them up for the colors, but the more I looked at them, the more I realized they're actually kind of mirroring what you see in the photo. My aunt is wearing white with kind of a yellowish green color, and my mom is wearing pink. And so it actually works really well. And so I made sure that I put the green one before the pink one, so just like how you see in the photo. And then I kind of played around with the envelopes for a bit, and then I realized my aunt is slightly taller than my mom, so I adjusted the envelope, the green one, to kind of, again, mirror the height difference as well. And so even the envelopes are kind of sisters. I continued layering a little bit more with ribbon. The birds of a feather, birds on a wire ribbon, I added over the photo as well. And then I realized that the journaling, it would have to be on a tag, right, just to be able to fit in that envelope. And so I used a few Dear Lizzie tags, which coordinated perfectly with this page. I went through and basically picked out the colors that would work well with the colors on the page, and I finally decided on two tags that are very similar to each other. And notice the green and pink repetition. It was serendipitous. It's just a really great stroke of luck. And so those would be tucked in. I didn't really know what I was going to say in the journaling just yet, and so I decided to save that for the end. My mom and aunt are both huge flower lovers, and so this pink paisley card just had to be part of this page. But if you notice, it was a little too big for the layout. It kind of dominated it smack dab in the center. And so I sized it down a bit. I trimmed the top off, and since the corners are rounded, I used my corner rounder to follow suit once it was a little smaller. And so I tucked it back in. But even then, notice like that white just kind of pulls everything toward the center of the page. And so I kind of played around with it to see where it would work best. I finally realized that it would look best tucked behind the photo in the second tier of the page. The reason for that is visual weight. By that I mean when you look, for instance, at the journaling card area at the top, it's really big, right? It kind of overpowers the layout almost, but it can be balanced by adding kind of similar weights to the other three angles of that visual triangle, and that's just what was happening here. And so I added the flower to one, and then that basic gray snippet card of the dresses to the other. At that point, I noticed that cream colored section of paper right in the middle, it was sort of an open expanse. And so I decided the title block would work really well there. But rather than just add a title, I love clusters, accent clusters. And so I added a frame from Webster's Pages, as well as these little wooden pieces. They say things like love, and there's little clouds on them. And they're, I think, just perfect for this page because they're sort of light and sweet. And so I clustered them together using craft glue to adhere them. And then the rest of the accents I chose very deliberately. When I choose accents, it isn't just me using something simply because I like it. It's really just part of the larger story that a page tells. And so sometimes it's just to echo the colors on a page, but even then, for instance, like these stick pins you see here, they have this sort of feminine vintage look to them. And so they definitely work with the colors, but they also work with the content, this page about two sisters. And then that leaf stick pin, of course, goes with their whole love of flowers, all things green. The pins that you see here from Jenny Bolin Studios, you can't really see them here. There's a detail photo later at the end of the video, but the bottom one is two girls. One is wearing green, and the other is wearing pink, interestingly. And then the other is a rooster, which is a Portuguese thing. My grandma's house was always full of roosters, living and ceramic. And so that just fits my whole mom and aunt being half Portuguese each. I used a heart from Freckled Fawn. Every one of my layouts generally has a heart somewhere on it, using dye ink to change it from its basic wooden veneer color to bright pink. And then I added these letters from American Crafts. And I still noticed that there was a sort of empty space in the center. And rather than just add the sisters' initials here, I also wrote the word sisters. And so precision here isn't really important because it's kind of a quaint quality that I was aiming for here on the page. And so the letters are staggered here and there, and I kind of crinkled them up a bit so that they're not really lying flat on the page. And then I ran them through my sewing machine just at the base, so that it would look kind of like they were stitched, well, they actually were stitched together, but it had this sort of banner quality to it, or garland quality. And so I think it adds something. And if you notice, I chose pink and green for those letters, again, echoing the colors that the sisters used. This is the final layout. As you can see, the ribbon and the pattern paper are keeping company very well together. There were two little additions that I made to the layout. The first is the row of polka dot vellum pattern paper from Dear Lizzie at the bottom, and the second, you'll notice, is the addition of a green bow right under the accent cluster. The bow is actually a found object. It was on a gift that I received at Easter, and I loved it so much that I used it here. I also added the journaling to the tags that were in the envelopes at the top of the layout, treating each sister individually, but also reinforcing the fact that they are connected by using a similar approach to the journaling on both. My aunt, for instance, she's a very strong person, and so I compare her strength to armor. sort of determination that a knight would have. My mom's strength is more like a shawl that she kind of consistently offers to people who seem to need it more than she does. Both of them very strong. And so on the flip side, I went into their sense of humor, how they interact with others, and their qualities, which are all very redeeming qualities. But the main thing is that their individuality comes through, but also their connection to each other. So there you have it. Whether you're using it on pigtails, on presents, or, in this case, patterned paper, you have so many reasons to be using ribbon. You know your stash is full of it. So get that ribbon out, get to work, or get to playing, and be sure to share your pages with us through the 2Ps gallery. I know we would all love to see them. Thanks for joining me for this week's Scrap Your Stash.